Hello everyone, welcome to the Adult Crafters Guild series. Today's projects are outdoor decor. If you're feeling a little crafty and you don't want to spend a lot of time on your creations, but you've got 15 minutes or so, I've got a few projects for you. And the best part is that most of us probably already have what we need in the way of supplies around the house and yard. First up is a candle holder. And these can be any color and size you choose. Here's what you'll need for this project. A glass jar, and you'll want to make sure that you've stripped the labels and cleaned the inside and out so you have a nice clean flat surface. Mod Podge. I'm using matte. There's also a gloss version that you can use. If you've got the outdoor version, that's the best, but this will work just fine. You'll need a brush. Either one of these types of brushes will work. Some tissue paper. I've got some already cut up here. And you can use any color you like. I'm using white because it helps the greenery show through a little bit more. And then you'll need greenery. You can use anything flat like fern fronds, leaves, flowers, petals. I've got a few green leaves here that are a nice shape. You'll need some scissors. And you'll need a votive candle. I've got a wax candle here. And there are also some LED candles that you can turn on and off that are nice. Okay, the first thing you'll want to do is brush on a little bit of Mod Podge to one section of the jar. And I'm going to work in sections because I don't want the Mod Podge to dry too quickly before I get around to putting the leaves and the tissue paper on. So I'm just going to do one section at a time. I've got my tissue paper already cut into strips. You can cut it into squares, rectangles. I think strips work pretty well in most jars, so I'm just going to lay one over the top here and press it down. Make sure I press in the cracks and crevices around the top of the jar. And a little bit more Mod Podge in another section here. And I'm going to press one of my leaves on, one of the smaller leaves, right onto the top of the Mod Podge. And then I want to dab a little bit more Mod Podge on here. Oops. Here we go. To help it stick to the tissue paper. And they slide around a bit, so dabbing usually works best instead of brushing. I'm going to take another strip of tissue paper and lay it over the top. A little bit of overlap is fine. If you've got a lot of overlap, the tissue paper color will show through a little bit more once it's dry. But as you lay the strips down, or the rectangles, the squares, the pieces, you'll want to make sure you brush out with your fingers as much of the bubbling as possible, just to get a nice flat surface here. And I'm going to cut off these extra pieces once we're done going all the way around the jar. So you'll just continue in this manner and add your greenery, your petals, whatever you've got to add some design. You can put them on randomly, or you can place them in a pattern. Since I've got a bigger leaf here, I'm going to cover a little bit more of the section with the Mod Podge so it'll stick. I'm just going to put these on randomly and dab a little bit more Mod Podge onto the top of that. Get it to adhere as best I can without too many bubbles. And as evenly a coat as I can get on here. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take another strip and lay that over the top, and it'll overlap just a little bit. Mod Podge is a little bit forgiving, so if you lay down a sheet and you don't like the way it looks, you can gently lift it up without it tearing. But gentle is the key word. Another strip of paper, smooth that up right over the top. There we are. We're almost to the very end. I'll probably only need one more strip. And then I'm going to add a little bit more to the last section, right underneath there too. Push that down before I set the next sheet on top of there. And this one will probably work. Yes, that'll be great. So set that down on there. Straighten it out as much as I can. There we go. And it's okay if you've got some bits and pieces that aren't stuck around the top and the bottom, because we are going to add another final coat, and that'll catch any of those pieces that are still on top. Okay, so now I'm going to give this a little trim. I'm just going to eyeball where I think it should go. And sheet. And I'm going to add a little bit more Mod Podge to the edge around the bottom, not too much in the middle, and just press that in one section at a time. And we'll come back and press that in a little bit more if it needs it, but that'll give us enough to go on there. And then, if our top looks good, we don't need to trim any. I think it looks pretty good. A few little snips here and there. So now you can see what it looks like so far. Pretty nice. So I forgot to put one of my other leaves on, but that gives you the idea. Now, for one final step, we're going to brush another coat of Mod Podge on, not too heavily, as evenly as possible, trying not to brush against the overlap. You don't want to snag any of those pieces. You don't need a whole lot, but just enough to seal it and catch any of those pieces that didn't get glued down the first time around. Okay, dab those a little bit more. Okay, so now we'll let it dry. This jar will probably take about an hour to set. The heavier the Mod Podge you put on, of course, the longer it'll take to dry. But once it's completely dry, you can pop in your candle and you have a beautiful glowing candle holder to add to your table.